all the time. They're like, they don't act that way at home, but at school, they're great, they're wonderful, they're respectful. Yeah, it's funny.
All right. We're live. We're officially live.
Hey.
Hey.
Hi.
Well, I just wanted to, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're a super busy teacher. And one thing that's always impressed me about you was the fact that you would go super early and leave super late. You know, obviously you take your job, very serious, and it shows, because let me read, because I want to make sure I wrote this down so I didn't forget. So Elizabeth, Tusk Unified Teacher of the Year 2018 in the magazine or that thing. So that was awesome. I know her.
Hey.
And then OC semi-finalist Teacher of the Year 2019.
Yeah.
I think I told you my prediction is you're going to be Teacher of California 2020.
Well, thank you. It's very nice. Those honors are very nice, but it's very nice to get those recognitions.
Oh, I bet. Well, I think parents right now are appreciating teachers a lot more, because now they kind of are in your shoes, and to deal with 1 or 2 or 3 kids compared to 20 plus, I mean.
Oh yeah, very different. When we were dealing with like 30, the most I've ever had was 36 in a classroom at one time, and making sure to get to each and every single one of them and their different personalities. So I can only imagine at home, because my favorite is sometimes kids even at school are a bit different than when they are at home, because it's their comfort spot. It's what they have. Usually the environment is so much different at home, and now you're trying to change that environment into a school environment at the same time. So it's a hard adjustment.
No, that's true.
Sure.
And I didn't even think about that, because I noticed, my son's crazy. So we started taking him to Sunday school. We're like, oh my gosh, please, please. And then the teachers would be like, oh, he's so quiet, he's so nice. We're like, no, that's my son, not the kid next to him, but.
Exactly. Oh, at parent conferences all the time, they're like, they don't act that way at home, but at school, they're great, they're wonderful, they're respectful. Yeah, it's funny. But the parents are always like, well, we'd rather them be that way at school.
Right. So I'm sure that gets frustrating for parents trying to teach their kids, because at least, when you're the parent, you can actually, you're not listening.
Yeah.
So I was hoping that you can just give us some kind of like tips and pointers for parents that are teaching their kids at home or helping them out, in the different, I guess, levels, whether it's elementary, high school, maybe even college. I mean, sheesh.
For sure. I teach 5th grade. So my students are 10 to 11 years old, and I've mostly taught 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. So that's the age group that I've worked with the most. I know for my students, even in our classroom, having a set schedule really helps them. And once they know the schedule, then it becomes much easier. So a set routine, a set schedule really helps. I know sometimes that's not always going to be possible, especially with parents trying to work as well at home. Right. A lot of times, some of my kiddos who struggle with that, if they see it visually, so if you have like a small whiteboard or hanging it up so that they know, and it kind of helps them, especially the older ones, to be a little more self-independent, especially if they can see that schedule and they start to know, like, okay, at 9 o'clock is when you're going to start working, you're going to start reading. And so having a clock next to it, especially they can learn how to tell time, that can definitely help in that regards. And especially with the older ones, having them help in making the schedule, getting their input makes them feel it'll be more motivating for them, and they feel like they had a say. So having them kind of talk it through with you as far as when's the best time for them and for you. So doing it together as a team would be really helpful in that.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Do you suggest to stay on the same schedule as they were in school, like whether they start at 8 and then go, or do you take breaks? Or
definitely chunking it. It really depends on the child. I have some students who right now, they don't do any of their work. I kind of schedule it from 8 to 2. like our normal hours. And so from 8 to 12, we do like our Google Meets. They come and ask questions. That's when we're more interactive. And then from 12 to 2, I'm more creating more curriculum, answering their emails and messages, but not so much through Google Meet is what we use. I have some kids who don't start their work until the late afternoon. And a lot of that kind of depends on their family situation. Sometimes maybe that's what works best, especially shared devices. If there's multiple siblings who have to share a device or anything like
That's
that.
right. I didn't even think about that part.
Yeah.
Kids, imagine 3 laptops and everything else.
Exactly. And then if you have different age groups, maybe the parents need to work. I know with some of my primary teachers, some of them are saying their students aren't doing work till later because parents are now can sit with them after their work and then can work with their children. So it kind of depends on what works best at your home. And for the older kids, I have some kids now that are sleeping in till 8 or 9, so they don't get started till a little bit later, but it works best for them.
Nice. I'm sure they're happy to be able to sleep in. And what about you guys as teachers? I mean, do you guys, are you doing the 8 o'clock to, is that across the board, or is all the schools different, or?
All schools will be different. That's most for my school. That's mostly as far as interaction with our students and parents. I'm definitely going beyond those hours, creating curriculum and grading things and checking on things. I usually start work maybe 6:30 because I'm more of a morning person. So at 6:30, I'm on my computer reviewing their work, giving them feedback, comments.
Well, probably become teacher of the year.
Recording myself in the kitchen, doing science experiments, things like that.
That's awesome.
So we're getting creative, especially at this point. We're realizing trying to keep them engaged as well, keep them engaged and motivated through this kind of atmosphere. So
what do you think is, I'm sure it's different for every kid, sorry, phone's ringing. Every kid. Do you think it's better just to send them the work and have them do it themselves, or do you find like Google Meets is very helpful, or a mixture?
I love being able to, I have it set up where I meet with my students individually at least once during the entire week for about 15-20 minutes to check in with them. It's just nice to be able to get FaceTime with them and just to check in, and more that emotional kind of connection to see how they're doing. So I kind of always start with that, always asking them, how are you feeling? And that's another great thing parents can look into, is really paying attention to their emotions about what's going on. And especially with kids, we usually project our emotions. And so if we're feeling stressed and anxious, they're going to feel that too. And I know it's hard. We're kind of teaching them, like when we're in these stressful moments, how to react. And so our reactions are we're going to be showing them what that reaction should look like when you come across a stressful moment. So I love meeting with them one-on-one just to check in with them and see how they're doing, and then be able to work with them on what things they need to work on as far as what we're doing in class. And then we usually have 1 or 2 whole class Google Meets. Like this Friday, we're doing a class talent show. It's coming to the end of the year, do some fun things. We would have had a talent show if we were at school, or our school play got canceled. So just giving them the opportunity to show off something that they're good at and feel positive about it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And that's a good thing too, parents could do, is having like a passion project. If there's if kind of scheduling, if you get this work done, then you can work on something that they really want to do. So some of my science experiments, I don't make it mandatory because I know maybe the parents or the families don't have all of the supplies. Most of it is stuff most people would have in their kitchens, but they could use it as a passion project, or something like, you want to let's do this science experiment. If we get these things done, then we can do that. So finding their interest and using it as a reward, especially I think those rewards are so much better than a toy or money.
Right.
But giving them time to do something that they love to do.
Right. And then there's nothing better than when you actually accomplish something, like
Exactly.
from scratch, or,
Exactly. Yeah.
kitchen blow up.
Yes. And one of my students, she sent me a video of the mess, like chemical react, because that's what we're studying is chemical reactions. And so she sent me, and it's great to see those videos from them, that they're having fun and them working on their music and art and different things that they're passionate about. So that's a great idea too, is some kind of reward system, but leaning towards something that they would be passionate about actually doing versus a toy or something like that.
Right. Huh.
Yeah.
Any other tips that you can think of? I know you went over the schedule, award them with something cool like that, if they accomplished all their task, or.
Yeah. And having them help in making those decisions is definitely going to reel them in if they feel like they have a say in all of those things versus
Right.
you telling them that this is how it's going to be. It's kind of just making them feel like they're a part of it.
Right.
And being honest, I find when I'm honest with why I do what I do, the kids understand it. So I'm like, we can't
For
do this right
example,
now
give me an
because,
example.
oh gosh, in class, like if we can't do a certain experiment and they really wanted to do it. I don't tell them because I said so. I never say we're not doing it because I said so. I always give them, I always tell them there's a reason behind my madness. But I give them a reason why we have to change something, or we're going to do it this way. And maybe it's not something they would like, but they kind of respect it more because they know the reason why behind it. And of course, age appropriate, depending on your child and what they can handle as well. So
that's just a good tip in general.
Yeah, in life.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to use that. I'm writing that down.
Right? So true.
And then what about the parent? What about the parents? Like, any tips for the parents, like patience? I mean, Lord knows I need patience. Like, like, how do you deal with it when the kid's not, behaving, or?
Yeah, that's true. And we teach social emotional health. That's been a big push for my district, and I think it's becoming more of a concern in our country. So in our district, we've been working on social emotional health as part of our curriculum these last few years. And so we teach the kids like deep breathing exercises, taking breaks. It's fine to take it. If you notice like your child can't do 2 to 3 hours straight work, then don't have them do one subject, take a 5-10 minute break, and then come back if that's something that will work for them. So taking breaks, breathing exercises, doing something, yoga, stretching exercise is always a great release for adults and kids, being able to get outdoors, especially right now that we feel like we're stuck indoors. Going for a walk. If you have pets are always helpful. It's nice having my dog with me every day that I'm teaching. And the kids love seeing Ramsey, so that's fun too. But I think for parents too, when you're getting in that moment of frustration, it's okay to take a break, because that's when you're going to be more clear-minded, and you'll say things in a better way than when we're in our most frustrated state. So it's good to take those breaks, take deep breaths. I know I do that in the classroom a lot. Sometimes I just, let me take a deep breath. Let's reword this a different way, small steps, instead of seeing the big picture, like small goals. I know, like if you have a child who's struggling, like my students are supposed to read for 30 minutes every day. And if that's hard for them, start with small goals. Like, let's stay focused you're sitting with the book the entire time for 2 minutes, especially maybe the little 5 minutes. And then if they can do that, like some kind of motivational chart, if you can do that, 3 days in a row, then extra ice cream, or, extra so, like time on the iPad or something that will be fun for you and your family. So small goals, small steps would help a lot too. In that, because then they feel successful. If they can sit with a book for 5 minutes, like maybe the littles, then then that's a success. And now we can try 10 minutes. So this week we'll try 10 minutes. And then
I might have to do that for myself, because I've never been the one that had patience to sit there and read a book. So I might have to.
Right? See, little goals. It takes little
Right.
goals to get to that big goal. So just like in anything, I always tell my students, some of them who play sports and stuff, you'll never be the best soccer player if you don't first learn how to just pass a ball. So it's just learning those small steps to get there. And even in kind of changes in your routines, take small steps. So I know with my students, especially the older kids, setting alarms, that has helped them to remember when to do things. So even on their iPads, I've told parents to help them by setting alarms so that they can manage their own time. Yeah. So it helps with time management, because some of the kiddos have a hard time. They get started, but it feels like they're sticking on it for way too long.
Right.
I talked to another parent about, especially she has 3 kids in her home, and finding
my gosh.
finding the best place. So the least distracting area. And so since her eldest is in my class, she is able to work in her room while the other one works at the kitchen table. And then the other one, who's a kindergartner, can sit on the floor next to the couch. So having them in the best environment, so the least restrictive, because the 3 of them all together, she tried to do it where all 3 of them were at the same kitchen table, and it was just distracting. So we worked on me, and she just wanted to make sure with me that Lucy, since she's in her own bedroom, that she's working on her own. And she's been doing well.
Yeah, that's a great, tip, for sure. Just kind of keep them separated, because I can, I know at the dinner table or whatever, so I couldn't even imagine.
Oh yeah. If you're able to, depending on your age group for sure. But if you're able to try and work that out, because I think initially you're thinking, okay, well, like a classroom, we'll all sit at the same table, but the siblings, they might start.
It's game on.
Yeah.
Well, what about, I know times has changed, since I've been to school. Like what about like discipline? Like how does a teacher discipline a child? In my days, I went to a private school so back then you actually got the SWAT, and it kind of kept me in check. And I know you could never do that today, but how do teachers today punish a kid for, not, being bad, I guess is the only way to put it.
Yeah, it depends on what the action is, like what the bad behavior is. And most of the time, there's a reason behind the bad behavior. So I think talking, usually in the classroom, when there's a behavior that's, always it's just a redirect, like, hey, let's change our behavior. Let's make, let's follow the group plan. Let's make better choices. And usually most of the time that works. But if it's a behavior that keeps continuing, then we use restorative practices. It's kind of talking to the child and kind of finding out the reason why it's happening. Most of the time there's a reason behind the behavior or the bad behavior.
Do they actually?
We don't call it bad behavior. We call it behavior.
Not me. I'm just like,
I know, right?
But do they actually express to you like what
they do? And younger kids can too. It may have to be in picture form. Like usually there's a form there. And if you Google search restorative practices, you'll see forms online too that you can use with kids. With my kids, I can talk with them, but if they're younger, they could draw how they feel. And so a lot of the times my kids, it's like, well, what was happening? They explain what was happening. I'm like, why was that happening? Or why do you think that's happening? And what can we do to change it? And getting them to talk it out and explain why they were doing that, and trying to come up with a solution. So some of my kiddos, for example, maybe talking too much in class or talking to a certain, talking over other people. A lot of times it's just who they're by or just the environment of the classroom themselves. And so talking to them, well, how can you change that? They're like, oh, well, I can move to a different spot. Okay. So now you know what you're supposed to do. So if that comes again, I expect that behavior to be different. And talking to them in that language, because now you have the tool. So it's giving them the tools to change that behavior is the idea. And the only way you can do that is talking with them and trying to help them see what they can do to make that change. And some behaviors are harder or worse than others, and some they'll keep doing it. And that's where you may have to you take charge and make more of the direct change if it has to. And there's times where I've had to do, so I will now choose where you sit, and it's going to be right here next to me because that environment's not going to work right now for you. So let's start with small steps again. Let's try here, or let's watch how this person does it, and then going from there.
Man, I can't.
Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I just couldn't imagine trying to be a teacher and then be a psychologist and everything.
Oh, we wear many hats. Nurse, psychologist, teacher. Yeah.
Well, if there's a time for you guys to start asking for a raise, it is now. So let's get some thumbs up for those teachers out there.
Well, thank you. And it helps. The biggest part that helps us, and I tell my families, is support from our families. When we feel supported, it helps our job so much more. So we greatly appreciate the support that our families can give their children and us. So it takes a village. Sometimes I like that saying, that because I'm here to help as much as I possibly can. And so I'm that resource, and whatever I can do to help them to make it as best as possible, then that's why I'm here.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time, just to give us parents some tips. I mean, I'm like I told you earlier, I'm lucky, the kids are too little, so we really don't have to a whole lot, but so many parents, they're trying to work at home and teach their kids.
Oh yeah. I can't even.
A shout out to Samantha. She was the one that told me, she's like, I feel like I earned my teaching credentials.
Right. And knowing, I think that knowing that every day is not going to be perfect, even in the classroom, even with me, some days are better than other days. Some days are harder. And sometimes we're going to have bad days. Our kids are going to have bad days too. And so knowing that that's okay, and that we get to try again tomorrow.
No wonder you're such an awesome teacher. So I just wanted to thank you, and I'm sure the parents out there, thank you. And we want to thank all the teachers out there, because you guys really have shown, all of us that, it's without you guys, geez. I mean, you guys are amazing, and I know you guys don't get the credit that you deserve. But I know now, you guys will, get at least more, from us and everyone, so thank you for taking care of our kids and going above and beyond, especially you. So I know your students and the parents are very, very lucky to have you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. Be safe out there.
Will do. You too.
Yeah. Hopefully I'll see you without a mask.
Yes, I hope we can all see each other without a mask, but we got to do our part to move things along. So best we can.
All right. Well, take care. Be safe out there.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, John.